welcome back to Agents of Travel,
where Rachel Van Ness and I, we interview a different person each week about their previous trips.
and try to book them the vacation of their dreams. Also, the other guy talking is Garrett Palm.
Yes, and the lady talking is Rachel Van Ness.
You said that already.
Well, but I didn't say, I just said Rachel Van Ness and Garrett Palm. Those could have been anybody. Those could be other people that come on later.
That's right.
I just wanted to be specific. Anyway, there is a third person that will be talking, and that is Kevin Rygg. He is a friend of mine. We used to work together at Smosh. You can find him. He's big on Twitch. Big on Twitch. His handle on Twitch is New Game Plus. That's NU Game Plus. The all spelled out, all one word, all lowercase.
Should
Twitch
we do
probably
this
is all
as
lowercase.
part of the outro?
We can do it there too. But Kevin Rygg, you can find him all over the place. He's very fun to travel with. I got to travel with him to Georgia for work.
And I haven't gotten to travel with Kevin, but boy, after talking to him, I really wish I had the opportunity.
All right, let's hear a little bit from Kevin, shall we?
Let's crack into it.
All right, cracking in. Hello and welcome to Agents of Travel, where I, Garrett Palm, aka Secret Agent Sticky Toffee Pudding, and
I, Rachel Van Ness, aka Secret Agent Panakukin,
have been assigned by a shadow wing of the National Travel and Tourism Office to each plan a trip for our guest. But first, we need them to answer some questions. Kevin, are you ready?
Yeah. Yes? Sorry, what were your names again?
I'm Secret Agent Sticky Toffee Pudding because I really like sticky toffee pudding.
Okay. No, yeah, I get that. I like it. Okay. And it was
kind of I'm Secret Agent Panakukin, which is Dutch for pancake.
Oh.
So there you go. Yeah. Kind of took the wind out of our official sails, but we'll take it.
Sorry.
Yeah, have you had a Dutch pancake or sticky toffee pudding before?
I can't say I've had either of those, but then again, I might have and not been aware. I just eat food, Garrett. You know this.
Yeah, I know this.
I'm sorry, sticky toffee pudding.
You can call me either one. Okay. It's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, we go by our aliases as well. So.
Yeah, both our agent name and our street names we will respond to.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood.
Because we're so good at our jobs.
We're excellent. That's why the National Travel and Tourism Office has sending us out into the field making this podcast.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you a series of questions, Kevin. And at the end, each one of us will present a vacation. And you can go ahead and choose which one you'd like to go on.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And then maybe someday we'll have the money to send you on that vacation.
Right. Yeah. When does that check come through?
So first question.
Okay.
Kevin.
Yes.
How do you like to travel? Like, do you wing it? Do you plan everything? Or do you reside somewhere in between? Do you like to travel solo? Do you like to travel with a group?
A long time or a short time?
Mm-hmm.
What's your travel MO?
That's a really good question. That's actually a really interesting question.
That's why we wrote it.
Out of the many different ways that I've traveled domestically and internationally, I have probably found I've had the most zen experience going solo.
Ooh.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. From the airport to the plane to landing and then experiencing the city or wherever I'm at, even if it's for work or for pleasure, the solo experience has always been the most wholesome experience for me. So I have found like that is like definitely my go-to.
Are you looking for a zen experience when you travel?
Not necessarily. I think it's just the act of being alone is what's so zen.
You like to be untethered while you're traveling. Do you end up finding groups of people and you're like, yeah, we'll hang or whatever? Like, are you the kind of person who meets people while they travel? Or are you like, no, I'm alone the whole time. I only talk to order food and that's it.
I actually am the person who, wherever I go, I meet local people and I end up getting myself invited to parties, barbecues, cool events that I've never heard of and like hanging out with them and friends years later that I still like their pictures on Instagram.
I gotta say, that is such a supreme and beautiful confidence that I do not have. Like,
you'd be surprised though, because I don't have that confidence, but I've done that. I've been there, and it's because you're so alone, so lonely that either people take pity on you, and then bring you in, or you are like, I gotta just step up and do this and like go and meet these people. I'm guessing then you like to wing it, go where the wind takes you.
100%. I will plan locations and I will make sure I have accommodations and I've pre-planned. But then the moment I land in that place, my overall plan, I'm like, I'm here and I'm gonna meander around. First, I'll find like the hot spots and go meander in the touristy areas, and then like from those trips, then find what's cool. And I really always try to find like the local interesting hotspots, less of like the touristy ones. I do the touristy ones just to be like, yeah, I did it. But then I'm like, I want to know like what does a local do? What does somebody who lives here like? What's the bar they go to? The restaurant they say, oh, it's the diviest best one, like that kind of stuff. So I definitely wing it.
This is gonna maybe be this question may reflect sadly on me, but do you have any tips or like how do you meet cool people while you travel? I feel like a lot of it is just like a strong sense of self-worth, but
we usually work in the office at the National Travel and Tourism Office. You know, we're behind a desk most of the time as agents. We aren't field agents so much.
Yeah, so for me, like how meeting interesting people while traveling and making friends and friend groups. I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. Alcohol definitely helps.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because it gives you a little bit of that liquid courage in making bad choices.
Yes.
Go ahead, yes.
I was gonna say, and cool drug. Do we do cool drugs?
Yeah, and so going to places, either I've already imbibed it, or I'm at a place where I am drinking, and then I get a little bit of liquid courage, and I'll put myself in situations where I will be the first person to initiate the contact. Sometimes I'm at a bar and I'm alone and there's somebody alone next to me, and I find a commonality. They're talking about something. I'm like, oh, I overheard you talking about this thing.
Yeah.
And then we start a conversation, and I feel like I'm the kind of person who has the ability to like really connect with people quickly. I blame my mother for that. She gave me too much empathy. So it's a curse and a blessing. But yeah, so I find like some commonality, and I found myself in many situations where like I suddenly have a group of people that don't know each other and I don't know them, and yet we're all hanging out suddenly, and it's an amazing experience that I won't forget. Or when I'm working jobs, because with working in the film industry, I would travel a lot for freelance stuff, fly all across the nation, be there for 6 to 7 months. A lot of my other coworkers would just isolate in their rooms, and then like that's about all they do. I would immediately, the first week, find a local watering hole, talk to the contractors we're working with, talk with people who we hire locally, hang out with them. And through that, like suddenly I'm getting invited to local neighborhood parties, and
you just become mayor of the city in a couple of days.
Yeah. But it's definitely alcohol that helps.
It would have been fun because when I went to Egypt for Smosh, it would have been fun to have you on board, because it was like definitely a division. There were 3 of us that were going out all the time between shoots, and then
I don't know though. Kevin likes to be untethered, man. You
that's a good point.
I wouldn't say like completely untethered, but yes.
Okay. But I was also going to ask, have you always been good at traveling this way, or have you learned how to travel this way?
Wow, that's a deep question. The question goes back a little bit further, so let me give some deeper context. As a kid, I was always the kind of kid who my mom was always worried for me, because I would go up to strangers and say, hi, my name is Kevin. Here's my address. Here's my phone number. I'm this many years. Like I would basically be like steal me. Or if you want to, this is where you can find me.
But you befriended a lot of your kidnappers, which is very, very sweet.
Yeah. I think I honestly put them off guard, and they're like, well, this kid knows what's up. Like, not this one.
This kid is just going to get kidnapped by another guy right away.
He's like, man, this is the kid that's going to memorize like where I'm not doing it. But no, so straight up with, I was always that kind of kid. Naturally would just like always naturally inquisitive, always wanting to talk to people. A little bit of ADHD dabbles into the impulsiveness in it. Yeah. So then leading into travel, I found myself just like the same thing. I was excited to do things and experience stuff. And, solo travel's fun for myself because I get to pick my own itinerary, and like I can do what I want to do and not feel stressed to entertain other people.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, I want to meet some locals. I want to do this. I want to hang out. Like I want to, and I try to enmesh myself in the culture of like I'm a local suddenly, even though, obviously I'm not. But so I don't think it was ever something that I consciously thought about being good at socializing while traveling. It just I was born with it.
Is there an experience that you've had while traveling that kind of locked it in for you? Like, oh, this is how I travel.
Yeah, I could probably pinpoint. So most of my international travel, I really have one place I like to go to. You probably already know, Garrett.
Oh, yeah, Japan.
But it is Japan. I really love going to Japan. And so I've been there I think 5 times now. And on my first trip I went to go for a high school. So I was like doing a study abroad kind of thing, and I didn't quite get I got that fish out of water experience, the like here I am, I don't know anybody and I'm existing, but I had a host mother and a host brother. So like it didn't give me that ability to like really experience it. And it wasn't until my second trip I went there to go visit a college friend of mine. She had, and I went on a solo one on this one, not with the school. And she worked all day. So I would go, can I cuss in this podcast?
Please.
Okay. So I would go fuck off while she was gone.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that kind of cussing.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I'll dial it back then. I would frick off.
Thank you.
And while she was gone at work, I would go mess around. And one of the days I had drank a little bit of alcohol, and I had made it like my goal. I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do on this trip, but I'm going to make it my goal. I got a map, and on the map, they had all the Shinto and Buddhist temples in the area, from the smallest like neighborhood temples that take up maybe like a small like podium to huge ones. And I was like, I'm going to hit as many of these I can while I'm here. I want to see the different ones. And I'm going to pray at all the different ones and just be, and mesh. Like, I was like, I feel like that will get me a little bit more cultural, a little bit more connected than just going to like downtown Tokyo and messing around. So on one of those journeys, I got off the train, meandered out, had a little bit to drink, and I got lost instantly lost.
Yes.
And so it first started off with me, I'm like walking, like I'm trying to get to this place, but it's so hard to tell the map. There's no streets, no defining, like I don't know where I am. And I asked these two middle school girls, I was like, hey, I'm lost. I'm American. This is all in Japanese, obviously. And I'm like, I'm lost. I'm American. I don't know where I'm going. I'm trying to find this temple. They're like, oh, I think it's this way. So we're walking, and then they say, I think you go down this neighborhood, and they say, bye. I'm like, okay, cool. I go down the street, and there's an old man like hosing his driveway, and I go up to him, and I'm like, and this is again in Japanese, I say, oh, excuse me, sir. Like, I'm trying to find this temple. I'm a little lost. Can you point me in the right way? And he looks at me, and in English, he responds, he goes, I don't speak English. And I was like, and for a second, I was like, I was like, and then in Japanese, I was like, oh, okay, sorry. I was like trying to explain, and he just like was not having it.
Yes.
It is so funny when you get fucking roasted for trying to speak the language. That is my favorite thing ever, especially when they speak English back. Like they're like, don't even try. This is cute, but like,
well, yeah. Because in Japan also, I often found like the older people avoid me. Like they do not want to talk. They don't want me to approach them and speak, ask them anything.
There is a weird with the older generation in Japan. There's a little bit of xenophobia going on there. And well, it's one of two ways. Either you have like the old people who are extremely xenophobic and like they go to the bars where it's no foreigners allowed bars. Then you have the older generation who like loves America. They love John Wayne. They love John Denver, country music, you Backstreet Boys, and they want to hang out with you if you're from America. So it's like this crazy polarity of it. So after trying to talk to this guy, and I'm like going nowhere, this dude was walking by us, and this is in like a neighborhood. This is like a removed neighborhood. No, like the nearest convenience store, because normally in Japan, when you go there, like there's a convenience store every block. The nearest one was probably like so far away. I was like deep. And this guy's walking by, and he hears what's going on, and he's like, "Oh, don't talk to him here. I'll help you." He's like, "Where are you trying to go?" And I was like, "Trying to get to this place on the map. I'm trying to find this temple." He's like, "Oh man," he's like, "I live in this area, but like even I don't really know where that is." He's like, "Well, let's go find it." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So me and this guy.
So far, this sounds like a children's book of like.
Oh, it gets better. It gets better.
Oh my gosh.
So me and this guy go meandering off, and we're wandering, and we're talking, and he's asking me questions, and where'd you learn? The typical ones like, oh, how'd you learn to speak Japanese? Where you from? All that stuff. And suddenly we stop, and he's like, I think I'm lost too. And so this woman is walking by us, and he's like, oh, excuse me, miss, like I'm trying to show this American like how to get to this temple. He's like, I thought I knew it was in this area, but I think we're lost. And she's like, oh yeah, huh? Like, I feel like I know where that is. Well, why don't I can like show you?
Yes.
So then we go wandering. The three of us go wandering the streets and just talking. And I'm blasted as usual. I'm just like, what is happening? This is great.
And
And
you have
eventually,
these two new friends from totally different walks of
Mhm.
life, and you're all united to
Yeah,
find
and
this Shinto
yeah,
temple.
and eventually it's you and 20 people show up to the temple.
A
it
whole
gets better.
parade.
It does get better. So then we are wandering, and we get we think we're close, and again now she's like, I don't know where we are either. I feel like it should be in this area, but I can't find it. And so we go up to a playground, and that's where we were at. And there's a father there playing with his two young daughters. And so we walk up, and they're like, "You from this area?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I live like right there." She's like, "We're looking for this. Like, we're trying to show this guy this shit, like the Shinto shrine." He's like, "Oh, that's like right over by my place." So he's like, "Come on, girls, let's go." So it's what is it? That's the five of us are like all of us are just walking. We're just going to the Shinto shrine. People from different walks of life: a drunk American,
Yeah.
a businessman, a businesswoman, and a father with two kids. And we find the Shinto shrine finally,
Awesome.
and walk up to it. And I had learned from, and that's a crazy other story I can share later, but I had learned like 3 days prior how to properly pray at a Shinto shrine. And so I did it before I did it. We walked up, we all prayed, it was a shrine for safe travel was what the shrine was.
Oh,
So it was like
Aw.
perfectly encapsulated the day. And at the end, like as per customary in Japan, there is something called omamori, which is crap. I forgot the word. It's souvenir gifts.
Yes.
So omamori is when you give somebody souvenirs. I always carried souvenirs from Oregon with me because Japanese people love getting souvenirs from America, and especially ones like really niche looking ones. So I'd carry like a deck of cards that was like the coast of Oregon, or a pen, a wooden myrtle wood pen that says Oregon on it, stuff like that, postcards. So at the end, I gave them all like a gift. I bowed, said, "Thank you so much. This was a blast." And then the business guy's like, "I'll walk you back to the train station." So we go to a 7-Eleven, go buy a beer each, pound it right in front of the 7-Eleven, and say goodbye to a group of people that I probably will never see again, but I will always cherish that ridiculous, like it was like a short film. I was like living in a short film for a second.
And for those, like for at least two of them, they found a new spot in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was walking through our neighborhood looking for something I'd never heard of, I'd be like, yeah, I'm curious now. And so they get to learn about their neighborhood too some more. Yeah.
I feel like what's so nice about that too, and is like good to remember, is like I feel like being from America, people are often like, if you travel, be careful, watch out for pickpocketers or whatever. But like the thing is, like, people are innately pretty good everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and it's like a nice reminder of that, is that like, I don't know, it feels like this like really beautiful connecting force,
Oh, and I've had several of those moments as well. It happened very, very frequently for me because I would always make that point to like put myself in a situation. Like I literally would plan and kind of going off the rails with traveling, or what did you say? It was winging it. I would literally be like, pick a random location, go to that, and purposefully get lost. Like I would know generally like how to get around. I'd have my cell phone with cell service should I need to find my way back. And I knew I would never be without, like, I would never be just boned. But I would purposely get lost for the express intent of just meeting people and experiencing crazy stuff. So I found this crazy large temple, Buddhist temple, that was hidden, perfectly hidden. It was so impossible to find, but the moment you found it, it was huge and nobody was in it. And there was an older Japanese man who had lived most of his life in Germany. So he spoke English with a German accent. That's who taught me how to pray at Shinto shrines. He taught me like all about that. So I walked with this older gentleman for like 3 hours through a Buddhist temple. And while he just taught me all about that and talked about his sons and all this stuff. And he's like, "Oh, I wish I could have taught my sons this, but they're no nonsense business folk who don't have time for the traditional stuff."
Next question.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you enjoy the act of traveling?
I love it. It is the weirdest feeling because to me, I kind of saying it like earlier, like it's a very zen experience for me because it's so humbling. I've done traveling so much and like at times consistently, but like a long drive I love, a long train ride, a plane ride, on a boat. Like the act of traveling to me is so, like I said, humbling. It's such an innately human experience to transport yourself elsewhere to get a different worldview and experience. So,
and it's also like I know what you mean by humbling too. For me, it's like you go to another country and they have a routine of getting around on the public transportation, so everybody like knows how they're getting around, and you're just lost in the fray of everybody, and you're just following it, and you're gonna get lost, you're gonna get on the wrong train and have to get off, and you just have to be willing to fail to learn how everybody else just they just know how to get around innately in this city.
Might I
Mhm.
interject? It feels like what you guys are both saying is the act of traveling feels like the scene in Finding Nemo where Marlin is afraid to jump in the turtles ocean stream or whatever.
Yeah.
But then he hops inside and it's a wild time and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the turtle way of life. Is that
Mhm.
accurate?
Yeah,
Crush.
exactly.
Crush,
Yeah,
yeah.
Crush.
we're a bunch of
Ride the,
crush. Well,
ride the waves,
yeah,
dude.
right.
Well, yeah, and for me, it's like whenever I enter into an airport, it's like my own personal Narnia because for me, it's just like I've stepped into an alternate reality, a different world where time
Yes.
moves differently and people
Mhm.
are and I've seen some of the most, and myself, I've experienced some of the most like an airport is the place where the entire human experience I feel is happening at once. So you go
Mhm.
to like different events and you'll experience the event within that moment, or you'll go, you go places typically, and in that location is where you're experiencing that thing, that emotion, those feelings. You go to a concert, you feel that way. You go to a dining
Mhm.
hall, you go to a funeral, you're experiencing emotions in
Mhm.
that space. But an airport, in my mind, I have seen and felt the gamut of
Yeah.
emotions
Mhm.
and seen the walks of life from the ultra wealthy walking to the very expensive lounges and going first class to the poor who are, that's the one ticket they have in their one trip, to the people who are jerks, to the people
Yeah.
who are the kindest, most sweetest people, to somebody who's in the worst moment of their life, to somebody who is in the happiest moment of their life. And an airport to
Mhm.
me and other travel things like that, that's how they always feel to me. I'm like, I am
Mhm.
witnessing humanity.
Yeah.
Myself, I have met, like, when I hadn't seen my wife after a year of being in a really crappy show in North Carolina. The amount of just relief and love and happiness of finally seeing her again,
Mhm.
versus when we had to pick my sister up from an airport after a relative passed away, and we held, like, in the middle of the airport. We didn't care who was around us. We held each other and cried in the middle of an airport,
Mhm.
and nobody sat there and was like, "What?" People, you just know that's an airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. I never really thought about airports that way. I think because I'm always looking at the dogs and looking at the food, to be honest. But maybe the scope of my world is just that small that I'm
Dogs
like,
and
yeah,
food.
the whole world's in here.
Yeah.
Dogs and Wetzel
Dogs and
pretzels.
food.
Yeah.
Dogs
Yeah.
and $30 Wetzel pretzels.
Yeah,
There-
exactly.
Question number 3. What was your favorite family trip growing up?
I would have to say we did do a few family trips, but they were never the greatest. But weirdly enough, I don't remember much about going to locations and being a part of that family trip. I only ever remember the travel. Staring out the window and like driving on the 84 in Oregon, next
Yeah.
to the river, and like
Yeah,
you see the
Columbia.
train tracks, and like staring at the power lines, or like just seeing, the Columbia, just seeing, like, that trip to me is so cemented in my memory that even now when I make it now, I get instant nostalgia. And I go,
Mhm.
and when I finally get to the destination, I'm like, I'm here, but like for some reason the travel itself was so innately buried into my subconscious. My parents brought it in,
Yeah.
like, back in the 90s. They somehow got a TV in the car so they could shut us up.
Yep. I
Yep.
remember. Yeah.
Clutch.
When we would get to the location, like, 3 kids and 2 stressed out parents, it was never like, this is the greatest, because your parents are dealing with stuff. But like the travel for some reason was very nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, did you guys have a movie you would always watch? Like,
Yeah,
would it
Fox and the Hound. It
Wow,
was
that's a very deep movie to watch over and over
Yeah.
again.
a lot. We watched that movie a lot. Oh, so much.
Oh, man. So, Kevin, could you tell us a story about your best trip ever?
Yeah, my best trip ever. I would probably, I mean, I will go back and say it probably was that second time I went to Japan. The
Okay.
third, fourth, and fifth time was great and I loved it, but the second time really was a part of a formative moment in my life too.
Do
Early
you feel like
20s. Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
do you feel like you're always chasing the second trip? Like, every time you go back, you're always trying to get the
Yeah.
second trip back?
100%.
Oh,
100%. Which is
mhm.
saddening because the most recent time I went, I still loved it, but I had that like chasing the dragon feeling. I was
Yeah.
like,
I
Mhm.
get it.
why doesn't it feel like it did that one time?
Yeah.
So I've been definitely, I'm like, against my better, not my better judgment, but against my own will, I've been planning the next vacations will not be to Japan for a little bit, just to give myself a break, because I'm obviously
Yep.
Yeah.
chasing that high.
That's smart.
But yeah, my best trip was the second one because I had so many unique and interesting experiences, met so many great people, had just phenomenal moments and some of the most zen moments of my life, like formative, like just a lot of self-reflection came from that trip itself because I was alone most of the time, yet meeting people and experiencing it.
So you already mentioned about finding the Shinto temples and that kind of thing. But what else made that trip so magical and profound for you?
There's many different things that played into it. First was the initial. So I had done some studying on my trip because this is going to be like my first big solo trip on my own. I traveled planes a ton as a kid. I used to go visit my biological dad in Hawaii all the time. And then having gone to Japan before, but this is my first solo trip, like internationally on my own on a big trip like this. So
Yeah.
I was like, how do I make this long flight on the plane as painless as possible? And the first thing I did was I brought with me 2 giant bags of mixed chocolate onto the plane with me.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I go to I call the flight attendant over as the plane is like, the planes are taking off. And I just said, hey, because I had kind of frequented some Reddit boards and they talked like a lot of flight attendants were like, whenever people just treat us as stuff, we love them so much because we always get treated like crap.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, why not? Yeah, you're right. Like flight attendants I appreciate the heck out of them. They work such a crazy job and long hours. So I called them over and I said, hey, I know you guys work hard. Like I work in customer service myself. I appreciate all you do. I brought these chocolates on board just for you. Like I took up room in my backpack just for you guys and handed them off. The flight attendant was like speechless, went off. And then I like for the rest of the trip, I had free alcohol, free everything I could want, free in-flight entertainment. And the flight attendants like one by one would come by and be like, thank you so much.
You are airport Superman.
But it was definitely, again, it felt great personally. I was like, this feels good. I'm glad. But at the same time, it made me, because having worked in customer service all my life, I completely understood that experience whenever you'd have that one customer who would just take their time and be like, thank you so much for your service. And, you always make great food. I love, you're always so nice to me. Thank you. They walk off and you're just like, oh my God.
I feel human again.
That cemented the start of it. Go ahead.
I have a friend, my friend Jody, who whenever he's on the plane, he is just chatting with the flight attendants and like flirting with them. He's and like with the guys mostly, and like getting to know them. And like when he travels, all the flight attendants love him, and he doesn't give them anything. He just
he gives
focuses
them
on
attention.
them, his attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And
he treats them like a person. Is the difference. Because flight attendants are always treated like, a lot of people dehumanize them, or they roll their eyes at them, or they only. I mean, we've seen recently in recent years how flight attendants are like, they have to deal with some crappy people. I mean, 300 people packed on a tight flight for hours. You don't necessarily get the nicest of humanity at that point.
No.
So to treat somebody like a person was phenomenal. I mean, you and I, Garrett, working in the sphere we do, if we ever meet a celebrity who actually treats us like we exist when we're talking like a normal person, you walk away like, that was the coolest person ever. But yeah, so that started that part of the trip. That was like the beginning of this. And I cemented for myself, like, that's what I'm going to be going into this trip. I moved forward with that. I went off into that, traveled hours to get to my friend's place because I had to land in Tokyo and then take a long bus ride to Nagoya because that's where she was at. And then from there, because like I said, she was working most of the week and I was there for 2.5 weeks, I would just go off and get lost and go and experience so many cool things. Like I would point to a place on the map, like I said earlier, go to there, get lost. But then like I found a random music dance show happening. Nobody was recording it. Nobody was doing it. Just this woman and a guy with a melodica go to the middle of this like shopping mall midday, and he's playing the music and she's doing a performative dance to it for nobody in particular, no audience, nothing. And I'm just happened to be there and there's nobody watching except for me. And she's putting on an amazing performance. And then a security guard comes up and is like trying to get them to leave. And then the guy playing the melodica is like, oh yeah, we're going to go. And he just keeps playing and she keeps dancing. And like, she's doing, it's all, what's the one where you do, where you're dancing to like, not freestyle, but like interpretive dancing. Yeah.
Interpretive dancing. Yes.
She was doing that. So like there was a guy who was hosing down some plants or something. And the way he was waving the hose, like the water was like creating a wave. And she stood next to him and was like doing a wave with, I was just like, what am I experiencing? What is this? Meeting the older gentleman randomly at that temple that I stumbled upon. And that was such a humbling experience. So like really helped me spiritually through a lot of stuff. And then meeting some cool people. I met this one guy. I was trying to ask for directions from a janitor. She wasn't having any of it. This one kid came up and was like, hey, I can help you out. Like, come with me. Like, I happened to be several times where people would just be like, oh, are you lost? Like, let me help you out. And then I would hang out with them for the day.
That is so cool. Cause I feel like in America, if I see that somebody looks like sort of lost, I'll like walk the other direction. One, because I'm like terrible with directions. So I know I'm usually no help.
Right.
God, now I'm thinking like, why do I do that? This
Welcome
is
to the
homework
therapy
for me
podcast.
for
We're so
later.
busy too in America, you know, like especially in LA, we're always going somewhere and we're late, you know, like
I think I also have a humbug vibe, like a Scrooge vibe of like, oh, tourists.
Well, that one kid too, the one kid I was talking about who helped me, he literally was on his lunch break and then he called his boss and was like, hey boss, I'm gonna be a little bit late. I got to take care of something.
That is above and beyond.
Yeah. And then he like finally got me to the place I needed to go. And at the end, and like even helped me. He got a temporary ticket from the ticketing gate at the subway so he could walk me to the proper train. And the guy, he talked to the guy. He's like, oh, I'm trying to help this guy get to this place. And the guy's like, oh yeah, you're cool. Here, just take a temporary ticket. You can get back out. I was like, what?
Oh
This
my
is
God.
such a cool experience.
I do think it's like when you're airport Superman, like that kind of energy comes back to you. You
True.
know, like when you're nice to everybody, it's like, I feel like you do foster that one way or another. I feel like it's kind of karma,
but I also think it's Japan.
okay.
Japan is definitely.
I was kicked out of a village in Japan very politely.
How did you get? Okay, hold up. How do you get kicked out of a village? What were you doing?
I did this trail to it's the village that's like no cars up in the mountains. It's like how it was 500 years ago, and it's all like super expensive. What's the hotel type in Japan?
I don't. I think I know what you're talking about.
The traditional hotels, and so it was all that. And I was up there with my sleeping bag, and and my backpack. It's like a village in the woods. So I was just like, I'm just gonna, once it gets dark, I'm gonna go out into the woods and sleep there, and it's fine. And this one lady, you know, like we both agreed that the moon was very sugoi that night. My Japanese was pretty weak. She eventually like figured out I had no place to stay, and I had a big backpack. So she was like, "Oh, come to my house," and she was a school teacher. And she put me on the phone with the English teacher there, who was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing in this village with no hotel reservations?"
Oh,
and
no.
she was feeding me onigiri, and then she talked with the English teacher, who told her that I was planning to sleep in the woods. And she drove me to the train station and put me on the next train back to Matsumoto.
You got freaking expelled.
I got
dude.
expelled. I got expelled. But like, she was giving me stuff to drink. She was giving me onigiri.
Oh, she's being so hospitable, but she's also like, yo. She's like, also like, hey, you probably should leave.
Like, I thought she was like, you can sleep in my yard, or even like, here's a room. I've got a spare bedroom. Like, it had that vibe of like she was like so nice to me.
And then she's like, get the fuck out of my village.
That reminded me too of another experience, and that's why this one was also really amazing. I almost forgot about this. So two things happened on two separate nights. So I forgot actually the beginning of that trip. I actually did start my trip in Tokyo on that one, and I stayed there for 5 days with a buddy of mine, another buddy from college. And he was a rambunctious dude in college and was doubly rambunctious in Japan. And since I had last seen him, he got like really jacked. So he was like suddenly really muscular. But so then while I was with him, we actually had some really cool experiences. And one night he's like, oh, there's this barbecue going down and they're doing like 100 beers from across the world. You should come. It's like $40 get you in, and then you get to drink unlimited alcohol for the night. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we go to this bar and it has a really cool overlook. And they had 100 bottles of beer from across the world. And like all the ones from America, though, were funny because it was like Budweiser and then all Oregon beers.
Yeah.
It was all Oregon beers.
Do you need anything else? Really?
No, right. True.
Yeah.
And that was the night where my yoked friend and I arm wrestled each other in the middle of the bar. We're just like, we're arm wrestling. In Japan, and Japanese people love arm wrestling. And so my buddy and I arm wrestle. I beat him. And then suddenly there's this Japanese dude who was at the bar. He's like, yo, can I arm wrestle you? I was like, yeah. So I arm wrestle him. Then another Japanese guy's like, I want to arm wrestle him. So I'm like, all right. So I end up arm wrestling the entire bar. And I
Oh
beat
my
every
God.
single
Did you get
person.
tired or lose steam?
At the very, I didn't. When I went to go arm wrestle my friend again for the last time, I had to switch arms because my right arm was hurting.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I literally could barely move my right arm.
Yeah.
But I arm wrestled an entire bar full of people in Japan, and I won.
How did they react to being bested? Were they just like, next time?
Yeah, they
like,
loved it. They loved it. They knew that they were gonna arm wrestle me and lose, but they would like it was just such a fun like pass. It was such a like an act of machismo. Just like
Oh my
arm wrestle
gosh.
this strong American. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
I want to bring things down.
Oh,
Tell us
no.
a story about your worst trip.
Oh no. Oh, gosh. Okay.
I mean, if you want to tell it, you don't have to say. You can just say pass. You can
No,
say,
yeah,
like,
no. I'll share. It was probably as a kid when I went to Alaska with my family. I can recall that being, obviously looking through the lens of a child is a little bit different than as an adult. But I remember as a kid, it was not too fun because my mom was very heavily pregnant with my youngest sister at the time. And so she was not having anything that trip. And I was I constantly got in trouble. I got sick. When we took a ferry to go, like an ice breaking ferry, I got kicked out of a bunch of places because I was being a little bit of a troublemaker. I was just...
What kind of a troublemaker are we being? Like, what are we doing?
I'm actually not like a bad kid. I wasn't like doing anything horrible. I just am so naturally inquisitive that I would get into places I shouldn't be, which makes sense because as a child, I probably could have died doing something stupid. Yeah. But I was just like, oh, what's behind this door that says do not enter? I want to enter.
Yeah, the captain of the ferry is like, what are you doing at the wheel?
Yeah, that's how you get kicked out of the engine room. That's for real.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was a trip with limitations, which you don't like.
And too many people to take care of.
Yeah. Too many people to take care of, yeah. Well, that's exactly it. And I that was, using that same kind of thing on other trips again to Japan that I've done. On the other ones that I didn't talk too much about, I've gone with other people at those moments, and the other people I've gone with have like brought down my trip too. Where I've been like, because it's a trip with limitations and entertaining people. Like I actually had we had some really cool close family friends I say, but like really good friends of mine and my wife's. And with the trip on them, at one point, like a few days in, I basically kind of like had like a mental break where I was like, you guys need to pick something to do. You need to pick something to do because I'm tired of planning it and then like not ever knowing if you're cool about it or not. And I'm the one planning this entire trip. So pick something.
Did it work after you set that boundary?
No.
Wow.
So it just continued on.
I changed how I was. I literally said, I'm done planning how we're going to do. My plan was this. I was like, since nobody's making any choices and everybody's just going to sit at home and I'm the only one like doing what I did on that solo trip. I was like, well, I'm going to break us up into groups. There's 4 of us. We can take turns having a partner for the day. And then with those different people, we go off and do different stuff.
Oh, that's kind of fun. I like that.
Yeah. And it worked out. We had some really good trips. Only 2 of us spoke Japanese though. So when it was the day that us 2 were together, the other 2 who didn't had a very interesting trip.
But that's good. That's good to learn how to be self-sufficient. I often feel like when Garrett and I travel together, I often have this feeling that I'm not getting everything out of my travel because I'm not having to look at the map or we had a whole argument over who holds the bus tickets because Garrett was always holding the bus tickets. And I was like, look, dude, if you don't let me hold my bus ticket, I'm never going to learn how to not lose it. And that's a skill I'm not going to have. And Garrett, of course, was like, I'll keep them in my pocket and it will just be easier. And he's probably right. But like, I feel good about those people getting to figure it out for themselves because they need to pick up those skills.
Oh, and that was like what I meant when they were kind of worried about that. My wife, one of them, she's like, well, what if I don't know what to do? And I was like, you'll figure it out. You're not, I was like, first off, we're in Japan, we're in Tokyo. Like nobody's going to get disappeared off the side. Well, you might, but just don't mess with, if you see a guy with a bunch of tattoos, just don't leave him alone. Yeah. Otherwise, like people will help you. Somebody out there, there's English everywhere. You'll be fine. Yep. And they were a little bit late coming home because they were trying to figure the train out, but they made it.
That's great.
Yep,
and I have not seen my wife ever since.
I want to ask this question.
Yeah, you go for it.
Of what it is. And I know Kevin's going to have many answers for this. And there might be shocking answers. Kevin, what's the tastiest thing you've eaten abroad?
Oh, yeah. Weirdly enough, nothing too crazy. Well, I guess in my
Oh.
mind, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, I've had like the whole gamut. I think okay, the tastiest thing I've ever eaten was probably. Wow, this is a hard question to answer because there's so much. It would be kind of
Yeah.
like a combination of the most interesting thing that I'd ever eaten as well, which
Okay,
would have
that's
probably
fair.
been fermented squid guts.
Wow.
Because it was so unique. It was such a unique flavor that I thought when I smelled it, I was like, this is just rotten. And it probably was. But like I got served it on a dish. And by far was it not just surprisingly delicious, it was a little kind of disgusting, but in like a I want another bite kind of way.
Yeah. Where was that?
That was just at it was in not Osaka, Kyoto. It was in Kyoto. And it was like a small neighborhood izakaya, which is like a small like bar. And somebody was like, "Oh, you got to try this plate. I know you Americans probably hate it." And it was like $15 for like rotten squid guts. And then I surprised them all by just eating my entire plate. It's like, eh? これが好きですか? I'm like, yeah, I liked it.
Can I
What
also
were-
just say though, we kind of glossed over this. I don't think I know what it's like for something to be disgusting and then to want another bite.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know that that's a thing.
I know you said it as if you know that thing when it's so gross you just want to keep eating it.
You ever like touch something and it like electrocutes you a little bit and it hurt, but like not in like a, I'm gonna die way, and then you gotta touch it again, just be like, oh yeah, no, just me, okay.
I mean, like the closest thing I can think of is when you have a sore tooth and you keep on
Messing
bugging
with
it.
Bugging
Yeah.
it, true. Yeah, I mean,
think
Yeah.
it's kind of in that realm. It was just like, because on Smosh, that show, I think maybe some people might know I work on, there was the surstrumming milkshake.
Yes.
And I got to sample that on the video, and like it initially when I got it, I was like, "Oh, this is disgusting." But then I like let it sit for a bit. I thought about it because that was the initial reaction, and I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of gross, but also like kind of good." And I took another sip, and I was like, "Yeah, it's still kind of gross, but also kind of tasty."
Dude,
And still,
Kevin,
it's still hard
I
to
just-
describe.
I just don't
Yes.
I don't think you're gonna be sad in whatever situation you're in.
I know.
Because like you can eat like food that you would consider gross and still enjoy it and still find it's like, I like this. This is funky.
Have you ever eaten anything where you found out later, like, oh, I should not have eaten that? My taste buds were saying this is gross because it's poisonous or because it's like gone bad and spoiled and giving me food poisoning.
I can't ever say I have. I can't ever say that I've ever gotten to that. I think the closest that ever has been has just been so mundane, where it's been like drinking spoiled milk.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I like after I drank it,
like,
it was
this
already
is
like,
so spoiled. I want another sip. To see how...
well, I drank it and like it didn't taste horrible. It was like a little sour, and I was just like, yeah, it wasn't bad. I guess should I throw it up? Will I be like? I was less worried about like how disgusting it was, and more like I didn't mind it, but am I gonna deal with this later?
Yes.
Well, okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just developing a theory. Kevin, do you like almost every movie you watch?
Oh wow!
Ooh,
You're
Like, are
question.
you somebody who comes out of most movies and you're like, yeah, it was really fun?
I find the silver lining. Yes, I might
Okay.
go into a
Yeah.
movie and I'll be like, man, that movie sucked. But no part of me is ever gonna be like, what a waste of my life. I'll just walk out and be like, man, that movie was so bad. Wasn't that hilarious? How bad that movie was?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
only
beautiful.
time I ever get that feeling is if I like was expecting something amazing, and then I'm just disappointed. But I don't like because
Yeah.
it's funny because I see so many people like I intentionally watch bad movies just for the
Yes.
fact that like I
don't
can
get
enjoy
that.
them.
I don't get that.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
I think literally the only movies, again, like I said, in anything in life is when I'm disappointed.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
what tourist flawless segue. What tourist attraction lived up to the hype and which one didn't?
I would say Mount Rushmore did not live up to the hype.
Okay,
100%
trash
Mount
it. Trash it.
Yeah, no, that's yep.
Mount Rushmore did not live up to the hype whatsoever. First off, very tiny. Compared.
Oh, really?
Oh, you
Yeah,
go up
it
to it
is.
and you look at it,
Yeah.
you're like, how is
It's
that? This is
underwhelming.
huge. It's very underwhelming.
It's always presented as bigger, larger than life, which it is. It's like it's big for faces.
It's just, yeah, they just, it's always so like, oh, America, Mount
Yeah.
Rushmore. And then you go see it in person, and then first off, it's like super, like you have to walk through like an entire mall of shops just to get to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything there, it's like costs so much money, and then the park around it itself is like a half a mile walk around it, and you can, and then it, like literally Mount Rushmore is just like, you're like, wow, it's really tiny.
It's like they destroyed a native holy site for this.
Yep.
Well,
Now,
I would say in general, I think America's stretching for man-made landmarks. Like they were
yes.
kind of
Yeah.
late to the party on
Yeah.
it, and so like, you know, it's just all of them are kind of rush jobs trying to like
Mhm.
Yeah.
beat the pyramids and the Eiffel Tower, and maybe they just don't quite live up very
Yes.
often.
And I will say, though, at the same time, another tourist attraction that did live up to the hype was the Native American. I cannot remember what it is. They're building it nearby. And it was an interesting one, the way it was being built, but it was near Mount Rushmore. There was a Native American version.
Version. Not. I know there's a giant statue that was been built nearby.
There's been working on it since like the 60s or 70s or something. For the life of me, I can't remember what it was. I feel like I'd know the name, but unless I look it up, I don't want to say the wrong thing about it. But I do remember there was nearby, like it was like the Native American, I want to say Mount Rushmore, but like a monument being made. And this crazy guy in the 60s started making it. He said it came to him in a vision and all this stuff. And it was definitely a really weird way about it, but I think it was really cool. And that felt like a really I felt like I walked into a museum versus just like Mount Rushmore, be like, hey, welcome to dudes' faces. Here's a shirt with their faces on it. And then this one, you walk in and you're like, I'm walking through a museum. I'm seeing so much like Native American culture and heritage being represented. And then they did not sugarcoat the story behind how it all happened and the craziness and how insane the guy was. They're literally like, yeah, the guy who started making this was crazy. And then later his family like realized that he was kind of appropriating stuff. And so they donated like the rest of the work, and the family, like the Native American communities, have like allowed the family to continue working on it because they they
have a good relationship.
Exactly. And I remember being like, oh, well, this is very real. This is really, after having seen the disappointment of Mount Rushmore, this was like a really cool assignment.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that it's like a collaborative effort in a sense.
I'll try to remember what it is later, but I highly suggest checking it out because the story is insane.
So, Kevin, what was your biggest fish out of water moment? You kind of alluded to your first time in Japan, but that may not have been your biggest moment.
For me, fish out of water, weirdly enough, it was actually I think it was when I first went to Hawaii not when I first went to Hawaii to visit my biological dad, but when I was like 13 or something when I went to Hawaii to visit my dad. And I was at that age where like I was a little bit more, I understood a lot more stuff than just being a kid, be like, I'm in Hawaii. The reason why I felt so fish out of water, I remember the moment it happened was like the second day I was there, because I'm half Samoan, half white. So when I go to Hawaii, if I sit in the sun long enough, I get very dark, very tan. Growing up in small town Oregon, mostly white people. And I had just gotten used to, I hadn't ever, I would not, especially at 13, I knew I was Samoan, but I hadn't quite locked in the concept of like race for myself. So I just saw white people. I was like, yeah, I'm white, whatever. And then for the first time going to Hawaii when I was 13 and visiting my dad, now having this new kind of awareness, a little bit of race and like what that means, walking into a Walmart with my biological dad. And I looked around and I had a straight up culture shock. I was like, there's no white people in this Walmart at all. And then for a second, I'm like, I'm the only white person. And then I saw myself in the mirror. I remember this at Walmart. I was in the clothing section. I look in the mirror. I'm like, I look just like everybody here. Am I like, I'm just a normal person? Like it was the biggest, it literally gave me existentialism. And so for the rest of the trip, I had this weird feeling of like I belonged, but I didn't know who I was. I had like this weird, just like, and it was fun. So it's not quite a fish out of water, but also pretty much like a fish out of water.
You were a fish in water.
In water.
Realized,
you were finally a fish in water.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. I was a fish who didn't realize he had been breathing air for this whole time.
Yeah.
It was crazy though. Like, because I remember suddenly like this feeling of like, initially when I was there, I was like, oh, I don't belong because I don't look Hawaii. I'm not from Hawaii. People are going to know. And then people would just like be like, hey, brother, the kind, like, what's, they just like talk to me like I was just a local boy. Yeah. And like the treatment I would get would be different. Like I'd go to places where like tourists weren't allowed, but like nobody batted an eye at me wandering in. So like it was an experience. It was being a fish in water. I like that. I'm going to use that from now on.
Yeah. That's very beautiful. Have you reconnected more with your Samoan culture since then, or not as much?
I had tried a little bit, but I am so culturally like American and like such a small town Oregon boy that like had this like degree of weird like appropriation by me in a sense, because I'm like,
Mhm.
I didn't grow up Samoan. I am, that is part of my race and is part of my heritage and understanding it. But I'm like, that's just not like I'm representing something that I'm not really, because I
Mhm.
know who I am. I'm very like concrete in who I am. So I never did connect with it, but I definitely am like know about a lot of that stuff. And my
Yeah.
dad has always said, "Oh, if you want to fly over to Samoa, like you got 300 family members there." I'm like, nah, I'm good.
No, I'm just gonna go to Japan again for
Yeah,
the 10th time.
my next trip is Germany, but yes.
Ooh, that's very
Oh,
exciting.
yeah.
I mean,
We-
we're gonna keep
Well,
moving, but
Yes.
maybe
yeah.
we'll see what the agents say.
I was considering that.
I'll
for
write
you.
that down.
Yeah, I
I'll
was
write that
considering that for you. But if it's already
Maybe we'll say Germany is off limit.
yeah, yeah.
Just to get me. All right.
Real quick, going back, the Crazy Horse Memorial.
Crazy. Okay, so it was the crazy. That's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to be like seem ignorant, be like, "Yo, Crazy Horse Memorial." Yes,
Sure.
the Crazy Horse Memorial was it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good.
the
Oglala Lakota Warrior Crazy Horse.
mhm.
Good work, Agent Sticky Toffee Pudding.
Wow, sticky toffee pudding.
So, if you could step into any moment from your travels anytime you wished, which quintessential perfect moment would you pick?
Oh wow, that's a really really awesome one. Because I mean, there's so many moments that I would just be like, "Yeah, there," but I'm like, "Oh, but no, but like, but this, but no." I would say like three different moments. Three different
You-
moments for.
You
What?
get one for the rest of your life.
Oh, like but I'm allowed to just go back to that
You can
moment.
you can tell us all three, but choose one.
You gotta pick
Okay.
one.
You gotta
Okay,
pick
I
one, and that's
understand.
for the rest of your life.
Okay. I would say of the three, the first one would of the three that I have in my mind, the three are road trips with my family, because there's
Okay.
something those are so magical to me as a kid, and it
Yeah.
was just a moment of being a child and just a
I
complete
get
trust within the parents and
Very
different,
safe.
very safe. So road trip with the family, going to that night when I arm wrestled everybody in a bar in Japan. If I could relive that over and over again, yes.
I love that you're like coming in after a hard day and you're like, I'm gonna step into the day where I fucking slammed 50 Japanese guys at arm wrestling.
I was one American in there too. I got him as well twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the final one was when I was in Fayetteville, North Carolina, working on a shoot, and I was in the middle of Hurricane Matthew. Literally, I was in the eye of the storm at one point, and I would, if I could step into that moment over and over again, I would, because it was
Wow.
definitely, it was intense. I think I'd probably pick the Japan one, but I think the Hurricane Matthew was a close second for me, because it was so I had never been in a hurricane before, and it was
Right.
going in so fast, and I didn't have any way. Like another guy in the show had left, but like I didn't have a way to get out in time before they shut the planes down. So the hurricane just sweeps in, and I'm watching it, and you can just see it approaching, this wall of just dark clouds coming at you, and then suddenly it's just like all you hear is just like the sound of howling all around you, and the winds were insane. And I remember it was so terrifying because I'm like, I don't know what to do. My boss was this crazy drunkard Australian who was like, nah, we'll just go to the place up on the hill and go film. Like, we'll put some GoPros up. We can see the house that we're filming and how it looks in the rain. The answer is that when you're in a hurricane, you can't see anything.
Yeah, I know.
The worst footage that I almost died for.
Yeah.
But Kevin, I like that you're like, yeah, after a really hard day at work, I may want to go step into the middle of a hurricane.
The intensity. Do you
God.
like,
And that's
But it-
the moment I would pick is to
what about the intensity?
Oh.
Like drawing you in.
Oh, I remember I'd never been in weather that intense before, where like I remember, so the weather started getting really bad while we're driving in the little minivan, and I'm driving it, and like it's like pulling hard. And so I had to get out to get gas for it at a gas station. So I open the door flies open without me pulling it. And the moment I step out, I'm instantly soaked. Like within like
Yeah.
a matter of a second
Yeah.
and a half, I'm drenched. Not like I had just jumped in a pool, even
Yeah.
wetter than jumping in a pool. And then like people didn't know what they're doing. Everybody's like this weird state of shock. All the gas stations are just full of people trying to get whatever they can. It's so dangerous, so intense. We go to the house, put the GoPros up, and as I'm driving up, it's like a flood is coming down the road towards us. And when we get to the top of the GoPros up, I look at my boss, because he like had flown out for this, the executive of the company. I look at him, I'm like, I'm gonna veto us filming anything else. Like, this is extremely dangerous. He's like, yeah. I was like, I've got a case of beer back at home for you. You could just drink that at the apartment, and like, but I'm not going back out until this is done. So he agreed, and he drank all of his booze in one night, 24-pack. It was crazy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's
And the
awesome.
power cut out, so we had candles, and we're like in the apartment. I had filled the bathtub up full of water because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And when the weather started not letting up, but when the eye of the storm got close and the weather started alleviating a bit, I went down to this local watering hole that I had found there called Patty's, and I had befriended the bar, as I do apparently. I had befriended a bunch of locals, and I had befriended the bartender who used to play in opening bands for Bono. He was like an opener for Bono all the time.
What?
And he does Irish. He's this Irish guy, like pure Irish, and he opened up his own Irish bar called Patty's, and he'd play live music every night there. So I befriended him. Went to his bar, and like nobody was there. So I'm just outside on the patio at his bar, staying relatively dry, and I'm in the eye of the storm suddenly, and I'm just drinking beer and just looking up and seeing clear sky, but you see all around you this ring of just like clouds. And like it's so quiet suddenly, but that you're in the middle of just like a torrential, it was insane. Giant hurricane. So that moment right there is so solidified in my memory because there was something, again, so zen about being alone in a place, in a bar, in the, fish out of water, technically, and also weirdly in water because of a hurricane.
Yes.
And drinking
fish in the middle of water, but still dry.
Yeah.
Fish in the wrong water.
Just fish in some kind of liquid. Yeah. But it was so, again, like this humbling feeling of like, I'm a very tiny person. And there's nothing I can do about this intense storm.
Yep.
And I'm very lucky that I'm relatively safe right now.
Nice. That's like a good reminder moment to step into.
So that would be that close second, just because it was such, again, like a very like monumental moment in my life. I think those are the moments that I like.
The quiet after a big storm it's unlike any other quiet.
Deafening.
Yeah.
And then picking up the pieces, like when you then travel around and you see all the damage the storm had done. That road that we had driven up to go to the house had washed away 30 minutes after we drove up it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. The house next door to the one we were working on, a tree fell through and luckily didn't hurt anybody, but destroyed it. So I was like, it was not a small storm.
Yes.
Wow. But not as destroyed as that bar was after you.
Boom. Yep. Got them all. Yo. Many broken egos and many broken arms that night at that bar. And man, I will relive it.
Where was the devastation worse? We don't know.
The calm after I arm wrestled everybody, it was unlike anything else.
One more question, and we're going to do a lightning round.
Surprise lightning.
Surprise lightning
round.
round.
Surprise hurricane round.
Before the lightning round, is there a local custom or a way of life you've observed while traveling that you've implemented or wish you'd implemented into your daily life? Like for Rachel and I, we traveled around Germany, and at 2:00 they'd have coffee and kuchen, which is just coffee and cake. And we like to do that from time to time.
That's an amazing
little German thing we've picked up.
Mm-hmm. Which is just an excuse to eat caffeine and sugar in the middle of the day.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing pick me up to me, but
and butter.
And butter. I think, again, most of my experience, Japan, I really, 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 really wish customs that I had implemented in my daily life. I think it came down to the very small scale lifestyle that people lived. Because, obviously you live in an environment where it's small and you don't have much space. And so you have to live very like condensed and learn how to manage your, there's a reason why, who was the woman on Netflix who did like this pleases me, this doesn't, like
Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo. There's a reason why Marie Kondo, like her style is literally to declutter, is because in Japan, a lot of, like, I've been to plenty of houses and apartments there, tiny. Yeah. I feel like a family will live in like a 2-bedroom and sleep together, that kind of thing. Like, it's not uncommon.
Yeah. And
so having like that minimalist lifestyle for sure. Because I look around my place and like whenever I've moved, I've been like, how do I have so much shit?
Yeah.
How do I just have so much stuff? So I wish I had kind of like implemented that with more in my life and like the daily routine. Because it also would go into like how, because you didn't have much fridge space, you would walk to work, go work, and then on your way back, stop by a grocery store, grab something for a meal that night, make it that evening, eat it, and then, maybe save the leftovers, but you wouldn't have like too much in your fridge. Yeah. In America, my fridge is just packed full of crap.
We just went to Costco.
Yeah.
Our fridge is insane.
The clock's ticking on
all
the food in time.
And then you're like, well, I guess I'm just going to have an everything vegetable meal today because that meal is not, those vegetables are going bad.
We did just have an air fryer an air fryer sponsored everything is a vegetable
Yes.
meal recently.
Everything went through the air fryer. It was great. It was actually really good.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, I
eat
don't
it.
doubt it. I would love to.
Yeah.
You know me, Garrett. I'll eat it. But no, yeah, like straight up that minimalist lifestyle.
Yeah, well, because even having a clear space is nice. Like before this podcast started, I was super grumpy because we walked like we're doing this at a desk in our room, and I just have a pile of clothes, and my desk was cluttered, and I was just like, like when you have stuff to do,
Yep.
and then you get really pissed off that your like room's so messy, and I just have myself to blame. But I kind of get that, where it's like if you just have less shit, honestly, your headspace is going to be so much healthier.
Oh yeah, because when you have so much crap, it clutters so easily. You're just like, why? Where? Wow.
I can't even walk down my room.
Yeah. Or then you have so much crap in your cupboards or in your fridge. You're just like, what do I even do with this? Like, again, like being able to go to a grocery store, grab like 5 items, 6 items, and make a meal. Right? You're like, I feel like eating this today. Here we go.
Yeah. Or like in Iceland, I feel like everybody just has 3 outfits. But they're really, really nice, like really high quality clothes. But you just have like 3 things you wear. And instead, I wear clothes that are falling apart all the time. And I get mad when they're on the floor.
I feel like that lifestyle is so very earth. It's a little bit more earth conscious. Because I feel like I sin in this way. I feel like, we throw food away because it goes bad because we overestimated what we wanted or we got tired in the week.
Yeah.
And so just living that day to day, I'm going to go buy this and then make it tonight. You're like living within what you need, not this, I must have everything. All this crap I have in my place, half of it, I'm like, I just bought that because I thought I wanted it.
All right. You ready for the lightning round, Kevin?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Hot or cold?
Cold.
City or country?
City.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
History or scene?
History.
Clubs or cafes?
Clubs.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Fancy or casual?
Ooh, casual.
Fast or slow?
Slow.
Dogs or cats or cows or monkeys?
Ooh, dogs.
All right.
That concludes
the
I feel like I was just so contradictory to myself. Clubs, but slow.
Hey.
No, you did it perfectly.
Oh, good.
Okay, so now this is the part of the podcast where Agent Sticky Toffee Pudding and I will we're going to make 2 vacation packages for you, and you can decide which one is best.
Right. And then you guys give me money and I go do this, right?
We give you so much money through the tourism office.
Yes, once they, you know how the government is bureaucracy. And red tape, so it may be a little bit till they acknowledge us.
Okay. That makes sense. You guys haven't given me any contact information and anything either, so I just didn't know.
That's
reach
fine.
out.
Don't worry
We'll
about
find
that.
you. We'll find you.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, all right. I'm ready. Yeah, let's hear this.
Okay, Kevin.
Yes.
This is what I propose to you. My trip is I'm going to send you to Chile for a month.
Ooh.
And the reason is because Chile is so freaking long as a country, you're going to need a month to get through it. But here's the kind of stuff you're going to do. You're going to, first off, it's going to be a road trip the whole time.
Oh, amazing.
So you're going to be driving down all of Chile. At one point, you may run into like a group of motorcyclists and you may join them and go to bars and have a great time.
Okay, stop. You're already getting me excited.
Dude, let me tell you.
You may run into a group. It's not guaranteed.
I'm going to say you will. You will.
Okay.
And so you're going to like go on this fun road trip. You're going to go to the Atacama Desert. It's the driest desert in the world. Ooh. And you're going to ride ATVs, do some ATVing.
Okay.
Then you're going to go to Santiago and you're going to see the Andes.
Ooh,
you're going to go to the Andes Mountains. Very beautiful. Santiago is actually like kind of cold, which is very fun. And they have a huge barbecue scene. They're all about the cooked meats. So you're going to eat a lot of meat. And there they also have terremotos, which are these like an ice cream float. It's like ice cream and a huge like fishbowl of beer. So you're going to be pounding these things at the
That
club all the
sounds
time.
amazing.
Dude, it's going to be fucking fun. And then, and I also want to mention that in Santiago, you're also going to be surrounded by a bunch of street dogs who know how to use the public transportation. And I
Okay,
can
that just
attest
sounds
to this.
entertaining.
It's going to be entertaining as hell. They all go to their houses at night, but in the day they play and they go around on the private, the public transportation. This is true. So then you're going to go to La Serena, which has a beautiful observatory, so you can see the stars and have that sense of feeling very small in nature.
Aww.
And then you're going to end in the small mountain town of Pucón, where you basically just like party and hang and stay at hostels. And
Amazing.
and you know what? If you want, you can end in Patagonia and see the penguins if you want, but you don't have to go all the way down. That's selfishly what I would do.
So it's a suggestion for penguins. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to title this trip month-long road trip in Chile is what my package is for you.
Okay. You hit a lot of points. It seemed like right up my alley. I mean, you got all the points that I like. Food, partying, dogs that are self-sufficient.
A ton of bikers. And I'll say that their arms are not that beefy, so you can beat them at arm wrestling. I'll say that I'll also throw in weak armed biker gang to go with.
Arm wrestle okay, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess if Kevin, you want to be guaranteed to win, which I don't feel like is as satisfying.
All right, let's hear what your trip
Okay.
is.
Yeah, let's hear your side.
Okay. Well, okay. I feel like, man, Rachel.
She
really
sold this. She sold it really well.
So I'm going to send you by yourself for 3 weeks in the Balkans.
Oh.
So we are talking Serbia, Bosnia, Slovenia, and Croatia.
Okay.
We're talking beautiful mountain scenery. We're talking amazing nightlife in places like Belgrade in Serbia, where it's just clubbing all night. But during the day in all these places, it's a slow pace of life. Everybody's relaxing. They drink a lot of coffee, drink a lot of tea during the day. At night, it's a party. It's just nonstop party, especially in Belgrade. You're going to travel around by both bus and train. The scene, it's just mountains covered in fog throughout the whole way. Sarajevo is a beautiful city. It's got this old quarter, and it's just rimmed by mountains all around it. It's this beautiful old Turkish quarter with the old silver district where they just a bunch of craftsmen making silver objects.
Really cool.
The food, we're talking one of their prime dishes, cevapi, which is a grilled veal sausage over charcoal, served with raw onions, a big flatbread, and then a big thing of drinking yogurt.
Drinking yogurt.
Salty
I've
drinking
had that
yogurt.
before. I love that.
Another great dish there is borek. I like to get it as a vegetarian, as the cheese or the potato borek. I did eat cevapi when I was in the Balkans. I was a vegetarian. It messed me up, but I destroyed that hostel. But the borek, it's like a phyllo puff pastry full of either the white cheese and herbs and olive oil, or potatoes and spices.
Are we pitching a trip or a menu? Come on.
Did I interrupt you? Maybe once.
Because I was pitching
or
a
twice.
trip.
And then that you pour yogurt all over. History is recent there.
Right.
Sarajevo, you can go to the museum about the war. You can see the tunnels that they took to escape out of Sarajevo when it was being bombed.
Wow.
I'll book you a concert. Potentially Mostar Sevda reunion, doing some great Balkan, like modern folk music, big dance party atmosphere, everybody singing along, everybody's dancing together.
Awesome. Oh man, that sounds so cool.
That is my pitch. Potentially
your 10-minute elevator pitch.
Yeah, so I have to pick.
You have to pick. Or you can choose none and just say, I'm going to do my Germany trip anyway.
Well, the Germany trip was just because of Oktoberfest. And I was like, or the Christmas markets. One of those two.
Yes. Berlin, I highly recommend Berlin. I think you'd love Berlin.
Probably. But, Garrett, as your 10-minute long pitch was amazing, and I would probably have to do that one on my own because that sounds. I'm sold on that one, but Chile, I gotta go with Chile because arm wrestling bikers as I'm on a long road trip, and the crazy sights, and I get to go from hot to cold, and then like end
Yeah.
in cold. Oh, that's a dream come true. And then there's it sounded like something that very much a Kevin trip. But the other one, and I will say, Garrett, with what you said, you also don't know me very well because I was like, I could see myself also hitting that trip with a different vibe, going there and just
Yeah.
absorbing the culture and like feeling very like what's the there's a word for when you're feeling like I think it's a made up word that people use like sonder. Like
Sonder, yeah.
yeah, the feeling
I
of
did-
sonder.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you
I'm
so
excited
much.
on this
Glad.
trip. Yeah, so just you'll reach out to me.
We'll reach out
Yes.
to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Once
I'm
the
gonna ask for
funding
any of
is
my
released.
information besides just my email.
Don't worry about it.
Well,
Don't worry about it.
first I've got to kind of check in with all those bikers and
Yeah,
kind of see
yeah.
where they're at when
Yeah.
they're tripping.
That's
and
so
I'll
cool. You're
kind
able
of
to
get
book them
back
as
to
part of the trip. That's amazing.
you. Yeah, we go way back.
Yeah,
so.
of course. Well, I'm excited. I'll look forward to it
Yeah,
for sure.
she'll find some weak armed guys to make you feel like a big man.
Yeah. I mean, I need that personally.
Hey man, little arms, big hogs, baby.
Well, I'm excited.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, that was our interview with Kevin. Nothing really to say about that. I think it was all great.
I mean, other than it was a huge win for me, my first win in the podcast.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Yes, although he did say that mine is one he'd probably actually take. Yours was, I mean, bikers.
I mean,
Where are you going to get them?
This loser is so sore. I'm hurting for you. Gotta go roll that one out.
Hey, you know what? We're tied 1-1. I feel like there's a lot we can still. There's a lot of people to still.
There's a lot of time left.
There's
I've
a lot
gotta
of
be
time
honest,
left.
the competition element of this podcast stresses me out. I want to beat you so bad.
Well, you may get a chance. Listen again. We have another episode coming out soon. Kevin, I promised up top that we would reiterate where you can find him. He's big on Twitch. You can find him at New Game Plus, NUGAMEPLUS. And you can find him on Twitter, K_K_Rygg, RYGG. And I'm sure he's on Instagram. I'm sure.
Yeah, and regardless, you should follow him in real life, just around town, but in a respectful way.
Yeah. If you ever see him in Japan, it sounds like you should follow him.
Yeah.
You can find him on Instagram, Kev_Rygg, KEV_RYGG. And I think that's it. Anything
Yeah.
else?
Travel safe.
Travel safe, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.